The sideline exchange between Lamar Jackson and Daniel Faalele is getting a lot of attention, and I think it's time we have a conversation about where the blame should shift in the entire situation. We talk about that and so much more coming up on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Ostreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. And of course, Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Thanks so much to all the everydayers, the first-time listeners. If you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. We have 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage each and every single day here for you on the show. And we have a jam-packed episode today. Unfortunately, not a victory Monday for the Ravens as they fall to the Steelers, as we all know, in Week 14. But there was an exchange between Lamar Jackson and Daniel Faalele on the sideline during that Pittsburgh game that's getting a lot of attention. And I really think we have to have a conversation. We've had a lot of conversations about Daniel Faalele, but I think it's time we have a different conversation about him. We'll talk about that in the first part of the show and the state of the O-line. And the second part of the show, current and former Ravens rip the refs for the performance that they put on against the Baltimore Ravens and Pittsburgh Steelers, particularly the Ravens getting the short end of the stick on some calls. And finally, we'll dive into just the Ravens and Steelers recap. We'll also have an exciting announcement that we're going to share in the second part of the show. So be sure you stay tuned for that. I want to tell everyone and remind everyone today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. All right, well, we know that the offensive line has been the most consistent issue on this team this season. And one of the mainstays of that issue is Daniel Faalele. And things kind of, like, in my opinion, at least, felt like they reached a breaking point in this game against the Steelers with how bad Faalele performed, first of all. But Tracy Wolfson, CBS sideline reporter for this game in Week 14, she reported that there was a sideline interaction with Daniel Faalele and Lamar Jackson after Lamar's interception. And some context on that exchange, she said, quote, "Some frustration brewing on the Ravens sideline after that interception. Lamar threw his helmet. He then had a talk with Daniel Faalele, who said they know it's coming every time." Apparently, Zay Flowers came over in the conversation, and, you know, there's no videos of this. There's nothing along those lines. But hearing Tracy Wolfson report on that, and, you know, there were other accounts that I had seen during the game of people say, "Oh, well, Lamar is talking to Daniel Faalele here." You know, I think it's interesting because, you know, with Lamar Jackson and everything that he has gone through this season on the offensive line, it's been not great. It's been not great. And I just think that with Faalele, we have to have different conversations now about him than we have in the past. I think all the past conversations we've had about Daniel Faalele, they still apply. They definitely still apply. The execution is not there. He's playing terrible football, and it's a real problem. But at this point, I think what we have to realize about the Daniel Faalele situation is that it's no longer on Daniel Faalele. This is what Daniel Faalele, in my opinion, unfortunately, is right now as a guard at the NFL level. The Ravens tried the experiment. It clearly has not worked. I don't have a lot of hope that it's going to work based off what we've seen here, obviously. But to me, the Daniel Faalele situation is no longer on Daniel Faalele. It is on John Harbaugh and this coaching staff for continuing to trot him out there to allow him to make the execution mistakes that he is every single week. Because what is the coaching staff seeing that everybody else isn't? You know, everybody can see it, whether you watch the live game, whether you go and look at the film, whether you watch the highlights, or I guess in this case, the lowlights. The fact that the coaching staff continues to throw Daniel Faalele out there when over and over and over, week after week after week, we see loud losses from Daniel Faalele. We see plays where you wonder, what in the world is he doing? You know, this is just who Daniel Faalele is, and that's unfortunate for me because I was hoping it would work, but clearly it has not. At this point, the blame for me. Like with Daniel Faalele, he goes out there and doesn't do something right. I'm like, yeah, that's really upsetting and disappointing. But it's more upsetting and disappointing. The coaching staff continues to see this and doesn't make a change. And the only change they've attempted to make is a rotation with Emory Jones and Andrew Voorhees, which, yeah, Voorhees has also been bad this year, but there's not they're not actually like, okay, yeah, we're going to make this full change on the line. I don't know if they're scared to do it. I don't know if they feel like they don't have any other better options, but there has to be a better option at this point than Daniel Faalele. And I say that because it feels like, again, like Lamar having conversation with Faalele, that being put out there by Tracy Wolfson. And, obviously, look, the frustrations on that sideline. I mean, Lamar Jackson admitted during his post-game press conference that he is frustrated through the roof. He literally said his frustration level is through the roof. He said, quote, I feel like with the Thanksgiving game, we shouldn't have lost that game. It was the turnovers, unfortunately, but this one here, I don't know what happened. I mean, and again, that frustration level, Lamar wasn't singling out Faalele or anybody. Lamar wasn't even asked about Faalele during the post game. So, there was nothing to talk about there. But, with Lamar, this is like a bunch of stuff in one. And, Lamar hasn't been great over the last month. We know that. But I just think that with him having guys in his face every 1.5 seconds with Faalele, I mean, a corner beat Daniel Faalele and didn't just run by him, literally got beat on a pass rush by a cornerback who was almost 200 pounds lighter than Faalele. That's unacceptable. There are multiple plays where a guy, went across his face and, looked like he was clueless out there. It's a mess out there. And I'll just tell you this. People have been benched for a lot less. In fact, people have been cut for a lot less than Daniel Faalele has put out there on the field each and every single week for the Ravens. And at this point, it's been a breaking point for the fan base for a while now. I mean, we've talked about it on the show for months, even dating back to last season, we were talking about it, right? But it feels like here with them losing back-to-back games against division rivals and with the offense looking like it has over the last month of the year, is it all Daniel Faalele's fault? Of course not. Of course not. It's not any one particular player's fault. But I think that you get, if you're the Ravens, the most increase in, I don't want to say talent, but the most increase in potential of your offense with a 1-for-1 move, whether it's Emory Jones. And again, they're doing Emory Jones at left guard right now. And they said, it's essentially too difficult to move him around. You need to do something here. You need to do something. And we got the grades from Coach Evans, who does an awesome job. We've had him on the show, and he put out the grades from PFF. And look, you can look at these right here. Daniel Faalele was the worst Ravens offensive lineman on the field, and it wasn't even really close on Sunday. He was the worst run blocker on that offensive line, of grade of 54.2. He also was the worst pass blocker on the field on the offensive line for the Ravens at 39.4. That is abysmal for Daniel Faalele. The only one who was less on the entire team was Rasheen Ali at 33.5, and he's supposed to come in there and be a pass protector. So, that was a difficult day for him as well. But the next closest guy, the next lowest pass block grade on the O-line of their starters, of the 5-0 linemen, not the roster, of the 5-0 linemen, was Tyler Linderbaum at 55.6. And then you have Voorhees 68.0, Rosengarten 69.3. Ronnie Stanley, really good day in pass protection for him, 82.9. Stanley had a couple of penalties that were declined, but regardless, what do the coaching staff see, or what does the coaching staff see in Daniel Faalele? What do these guys see every single week that says, oh, hey, maybe this to me, I think, has to be the breaking point. I think it has to be, with this interaction. And again, I don't know if this was Lamar yelling at Faalele or if it was just a animated conversation or whatnot. But, we got the report from Tracy Wolfson, hey, frustration's boiling on the sideline. And I get why. But with the thing about they know what's coming every time. I mean, sure, maybe. But, is that more of a play calling thing? I I'm very confused about why the team continues to trot him out there. This offensive line needs a complete overhaul this offseason. It is horrible. It is terrible. They've had week after week of, a guy having a great game and having a terrible game. For example, Roger Rosengarten was the Ravens' best offensive lineman on Sunday. He had a good game. But, we've also seen moments where Rosengarten hasn't played well, and it's like this five just cannot get it consistently, and it goes back to Eric DeCosta completely ignoring the guard position this offseason outside of drafting Emory Jones, who they knew had a shoulder issue. And I said this on the Instant Reaction show, on the Squad show, and the watch-along we did. It just feels like, the Ravens, they've cheaped out at the guard positions for multiple years now, really ever since Kevin Zeitler left. They didn't want to pay him. It'd be nice to have Kevin Zeitler right now, by the way. And it's like, oh, the Ravens need guards. They need to bring in competition for these guys. And Eric DeCosta goes, oh, here's another safety. And again, it's nothing against any specific player, right? But it's just the concept of, they invest a lot of money in that secondary and not a lot of money elsewhere. And I think you do need to even that out. You got to, roster philosophy changes have to happen. It's just bad right now because you needed this game. And a big reason why they lost it. There are a lot of reasons why. We'll talk about the rest in the second part of the show and whatnot. But at the end of the day, the reality is that you can't let it come down to the refs. And while the refs had an impact on this game, Baltimore just flat out wasn't good enough to win. And, with the referees making the right calls, maybe they do win. But again, you don't want it to come down to those moments. You want to have the game in the bag. And if a moment happens, you're like, oh, man, that's a bad call. But you can move on, you can survive it. The Ravens couldn't survive the refs in this game in large part because they were not good enough, and in large part because the Ravens offensive line, particularly Daniel Faalele in this game, who was the worst offensive lineman on the field in this game. And how many times have we said that before? It needs to stop. It needs to end. Because what I've said over and over again on this show, over and over again, is that when you have a guy and it's not working out and you don't think you have any better options, but it's this bad with Faalele, you have to at least try something because maybe it's worse, which again, I don't know how it can be, but maybe it is. But at least you tried it and maybe you get surprised and it actually turns out better than what you have in Faalele, which at this point, I'd be pretty hard pressed to find that to not be true because you just see these plays every single time where he can't get to a spot. Guys are too quick for him. Guys out leverage him. There are so many things right now. And again, it's been a frustrating point for the whole fan base for a year plus now. I think that with this interaction, it definitely shed more light on Faalele in particular, especially nationally. So I have a feeling that, this has to be the breaking point. Is it actually going to be? I don't know the answer to that question. I truly do not. But when you hear the frustrations boiling over on the sideline, that fiery stuff and all that, at that point, you might have to start doing something about it. And I think for the Ravens, they've tried to hold on for so long with Faalele. You just can't anymore. You have to let go. He's a free agent in the offseason. There's no way he can be brought back. You have to overhaul this group. But again, you're kind of stuck with what you have here. Eric DeCosta, he made this bed. Now he has to lay in it. And this offensive line, clearly, their weakness on the O-line has outshined some of the roster strengths that they had heading into the season. And that is very, very unfortunate. Coming up in the second part of the show, we'll talk about the refs because I think we have to, some of those calls that they made and some of the current and former Ravens responding to those referees. So be sure to stay tuned. Plenty coming your way on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by Aura Frames. The holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. And if you want something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just something you wrap. It's a way to share memories because Aura isn't your average picture frame. You can preload the frame with photos before gifting it. So when they plug it in, the memories are already there. No apps to figure out, no setup headaches, just instant smiles. And you can gift this to anybody, grandparents, parents, newlyweds, anyone who loves photos. You have endless opportunities. And you can upload pictures and 30-second videos with the Aura app. And you can add a personalized message right inside the frame so the gift feels thoughtful the moment it's open. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, named #1 by Wirecutter by using promo code LOCKEDON at checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code LOCKEDON. This deal is exclusive to listeners and frames sell out fast, so order yours now. Get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Moving along on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you on this Monday edition of the show. Thanks so much for being here, tuning in after a loss. It really means a lot to me here, and all the support on the show, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day, your first listen each and every single day. And we do have that 5-day week plus more daily Ravens coverage and content for you. Daily show Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern time. We also have bonus episodes on the weekend when there are headlines. We have the watch alongs, instant reaction shows, squad show. We have everything here for you. And we have a special announcement before we talk about the refs for the Ravens and Steelers game, because Locked On Podcast Network is now launching the Everydayer Club. So want to make it clear, nothing's going to change here with the show. I mean, we're still doing 5 days a week. We're still doing all the bonus content and everything. All of that is free and available everywhere you get your podcast, video form and audio form. This essentially is bonus content that's going to be added. There are multiple different tiers of it. So essentially, as the show has grown over the last handful of seasons, there's stuff that I haven't been able to do that I used to do, that essentially I've had to cut out of the show because I just don't have time for it anymore, because there's so much to talk about, so many other things that we do here on the show. So with these tiers, you're going to get exclusive access, and you have multiple different options to choose from. But essentially what you are going to get, if you just want to do the first tier, is you're going to have access to ad-free episodes. You get, Locked On Everyday Discord server, access to national bonus shows, et cetera, et cetera. You do the other tier, then you're going to have regular access to, everything on the first tier. Plus, you can do one-on-one texting with me through subtext, which we have an awesome subtext community already. If you're already on that community, nothing's changing with that, but you can get added into that community. Also, there are going to be newsletters every day, and as well as some of the stuff that I've had to take out, like weekly Q&As. Like, I'm going to bring those back here. We're also going to do, like, for mock drafts, for the mock draft season, I'm going to read off every single person's mock draft that is in the Everydayer Club. So it's things like that. Still going to read off mock drafts here, obviously. So, if you want to support, because people have asked me about, hey, Kevin, is there a way that we can support the show a little bit more? But we don't offer anything like, YouTube super chats or, any other way, like memberships. We don't offer that on the network. So this is a way, if you do want to support the show and you're kind enough to want to do that, this is a way to do that. Plus, you're getting stuff for your investment in the show, which is cool. But again, if you don't want to, nothing's changing. This is just an add-on bonus content thing. So 5 days a week, still going to be free. We're not changing anything there. Bonus episodes still going to be free. Watch alongs free. Instant reaction shows free. All that free. So just wanted to make that announcement. If you're interested in joining, the link is down in the description below, both video form and audio form. And it's exciting. I'm excited to do it. It's an add-on to what we're already doing here on the show to build up another awesome community within the Locked On Ravens community. So thank you for all of the support. All right, now back to reality of the Ravens losing to the Steelers. Yeah. It's kind of a shift to go from, hey, we're building this really cool thing and we're adding on stuff with bonus content and everything. And now we got to go back to talking about the refs. Okay. Well, yeah, the refs certainly had an impact on this game. And I think it's okay, by the way, to say that, like I said, the Ravens didn't play good enough or well enough to win this game. And also the refs had a major impact. There were 3 major calls in this game that impacted the Ravens in a negative way. Obviously, the one everybody's talking about is Isaiah Likely catching a touchdown in the end zone, and I'm calling it a touchdown because it was. And, the referees call it incomplete. Where Likely's kind of holding that ball out, and the referees say, nope, not happening. You're not getting a touchdown here, which was ridiculous in my opinion. There was also the Aaron Rodgers interception where he kind of pinned the ball on his helmet, didn't really have possession in my opinion. Buchanan comes up with the pick. They call it Aaron Rodgers was down by contact, so Steelers ball. And then you have the Travis Jones play where he runs in the middle of the long snapper and the guard, doesn't make contact with the head or neck area, but they call it unnecessary roughness, which gives the Steelers an automatic first down, and they score a touchdown on the next play. Now, all those plays were pretty terrible in my opinion. There are also a couple of other ones. Like, I thought there was a missed pass interference in the Mark Andrews play that was a fourth and 5, excuse me. So, there were a lot of different things that, Baltimore could have had go in their favor that wasn't. And DeAndre Hopkins, he let his thoughts be known about it. There was mine. He was deleted this tweet, by the way, but he at the NFL and at NFL Officiating said 13 years in this league. How many steps do you need in the end zone for a touchdown? Because the thing the NFL essentially blasted out here was that he needed to make a football move and he didn't do that, whether it be third foot down, move, whatever. He's extending the football. To me, that's a football move. He's doing it in real time. And also he is in the motion of putting the third step down. It's not like he did 1-2 stop and just stood still. That to me is ridiculous. So, DeAndre Hopkins deleted that tweet, but still, he ripped the refs. Ben Watson, who is a former Ravens tight end, he weighed in on this situation. And, because people were obviously talking about it, and he ended up saying so Gene Steratore put out the whole, secure control of the ball, both feet or body part in bounds, and the football move, illustrating why he thought it was not a catch. But Ben Watson said, stop. He's in the end zone already. A football move as defined by this list is unnecessary at that point. This was an officiating failure. We're in the year 2025. All right. We should not be asking ourselves what a catch is at the NFL level. I mean, obviously Des Bryant is the one that everybody kind of points and looks to with that play. There have been a couple of other big instances. The Steelers actually had one with Jesse James years and years ago. Des is the most prolific case. I feel like Isaiah is probably going to end up number 2 on this list in terms of things like that, unless I might just be blatantly forgetting one. I'll be honest with you, but off the top of my head, Des Bryant, Isaiah Likely here is probably that 1-2, unless again I'm forgetting something. But that's a huge point in that game where the Ravens have to settle for a field goal on that drive. They kick the field goal to go down 5 instead of having a touchdown to potentially tie the game with a 2-point conversion if they do convert it. And obviously they can't convert for the rest of the game. And that's how it ended. So that was a potential game tying score for the Ravens, assuming they do hit that 2-point conversion. And the NFL has to go back to the drawing board here. I mean, they do. And, you have a lot of Steelers fans coming out of the woodwork and saying, good game, but yeah, the Ravens were screwed and like all this different type of stuff. It's ridiculous. And yeah, shouldn't have come down to that play. I'm not saying, the Ravens lost 100% because of the refs. That'd be false. The Ravens lost because they didn't play a good enough football game and they let it come down to a couple of big calls by the refs. But it doesn't excuse that the Ravens are in this situation. And I do believe that the Ravens got robbed. I mean, I do. And, you heard a couple of other guys talk about it. I mean, Lamar said, if we were on the field with them in that moment, we would all thought it was a touchdown. I mean, we all think it's a touchdown anyway. John Harbaugh was asked about it too. He said the explanation he got was that a third foot didn't get down before the ball came out. Which again, when did you ever need 3 feet down for a catch? It's 2 feet down in a catch. And the football move to me is him in the motion, in the progress of putting that third foot down. When you're in the end zone like that, you have the catch, you do that. Like you're in the end zone for a touchdown. Like it is what it is. The play is stopped. The play is over. So it's wild. And Harbaugh was asked about if he thought it should have been a touchdown. And, he essentially said yes without saying yes. But, he talked about the play with Aaron Rodgers and he said it's not an officiating issue. It comes from New York. When you're making the catch, you have to survive the ground. He didn't survive the ground. And, there's a lot of questions right now. And I'm curious if the NFL is going to come out with a better explanation to say, hey, this is, what happened and this is why. It's just wild. And, I think you have a lot of players. I mean, and even like media, Skip Bayless weighs on it. A lot of other guys have weighed on it and been like, man, the Ravens got screwed. That was a catch. That was a catch. And, people are coming out and also saying, no, well, 2 feet down, but not the third foot came down again. When did you ever need 3 feet? When did you ever need 3 feet down for a catch? The football move it wasn't like he caught the ball out. It wasn't like he had the ball out when he caught it. He had the ball caught, and then he extended it away from Joey Porter Jr. and was actively in the process of keeping it away from him throughout that, as well as taking the third step. So again, we can harp on it all we want to. It's not going to change the outcome. It's ridiculous it happened. It's ridiculous all those plays happened where, where the Ravens got essentially screwed over in those moments. But, the Ravens shouldn't have let it get to that point anyway. There are a lot of other conversations that need to be had. We had it with the offensive line. And coming up in the final part of the show, we're going to talk a lot about the defense. We'll talk a lot about some of those issues, as well as some other miscues from this Baltimore team that really cost them. So be sure to stay tuned. Plenty coming your way on Locked On Ravens. First, this show is brought to you by Gametime. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994, and with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why the Gametime app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snacking seats. The Gametime, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. You pull up the app and the layout makes it so simple to scroll through matchups and compare seat views. Pick a game, tap a section, and have your tickets locked in within minutes. No confusion, no hunting for fine print. And the seat view features a game changer. You literally see what the pitch looks like from your exact seat before you buy. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets in every match, concert, or event with Gametime. Download the Gametime app. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Gametime. And the show is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, your receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up, and you can bet next touchdown scorers, drive results, totals, and more. So for that Ravens and Steelers game, maybe you had Isaiah Likely anytime touchdown, or maybe even on the Steelers side of things, Jaylen Warren anytime touchdown, DK Metcalf over, Zay Flowers over on the yards. A lot of things happening over on FanDuel. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Continuing on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you on this Monday edition of the show. Again, appreciate everybody for being here on Locked On Ravens today. Just did the exciting announcement, the launch of the Everydayer Club, which is, again, just another way to support the show in addition to everything we already do over here on Locked On Ravens. Nothing is changing, just another addition. I'm excited to bring the Q&As back, excited to doing every single person's mock drafts in the Everydayer Club, and a lot more. We're going to have a lot more on both of those things. So, again, if you want to check that out, be sure to go in the description below and see what the options are. But, again, nothing changing on the show. I want to continue to make that clear here. Everything is staying the same. If you don't want to subscribe or do any of that, you're not missing out on anything. You're still here with us on Locked On Ravens with everything we already give you. But let's talk about this Ravens and Steelers recap here. I talked about the defense, so let's start with the defense. I want to dive into that a little bit. The Ravens pass rush was pretty terrible in this game against Pittsburgh. They had Aaron Rodgers looking like prime Aaron Rodgers in this one, running around with his legs, moving around in the pocket. Just felt really bad, if I'm being honest. Just didn't feel good at all. And while I thought the run defense, I thought the Ravens played you can look at the stats. They did play a very good game on the ground for Baltimore's defensive team. Steelers averaged 2 yards a carry in this game. 2 yards a carry. That's phenomenal. They did a really good job on the ground. But through the air, DK Metcalf just torched them. They were giving up big plays to an offense that really struggled with big plays over the last month of the season. And, I don't want to get back into this mode with Baltimore where they're the defense that you face to get back on track. I don't want to do that anymore. This team, you need to be better with your pass rush because your secondary can only cover for so long. On some of these plays, Marlon just got straight up beat. Chidobe Awuzie got straight up beat. It's a joint effort, but even still, the Ravens had no sacks on Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron weighed in on that. He thought that his protection was great, which it was. And, they were rolling with a practice squad guy at left tackle for a lot of this game. Broderick Jones already on IR. Andrews Pete goes down, and you have a practice squad player at left tackle, and you still can't get any sacks on Aaron Rodgers, who hasn't particularly handled pressure very well. So, you had big completions in this game. 52 long for DK Metcalf, 38 long for Jaylen Warren, 31 long for Calvin Austin. Very anti-Ravens defense. When you talk about the big plays that the Ravens really strive to not give up over the course of a game. And it was tough. It was unfortunate. Third down wise, they let the Steelers go 6 of 14. And on their red zone possessions, 2 of 4 is not terrible there. Even still, the sack numbers were not great. And, allowing Aaron Rodgers to put up nearly 300 passing yards for a quarterback in Aaron Rodgers that before this game, his season high was 249 yards. And over the past 2 games, he'd thrown for 116 and 117 yards. You give up 284 to him. Pretty embarrassing. It's pretty embarrassing. I mean, I thought the defense found something in the second half, though. I thought that was at least encouraging. They were giving the offense the ball back and, forcing, whether it's 3-and-outs or other big moments, that the defense did give the offense a shot to win this game at the end, even after the offense missed on that 4th-and-5 play. But my concern, obviously, the majority of it still lies with this offense. Some of the decisions that we saw, not having Derrick Henry on the field for certain possessions. We're going to hear about Keaton Mitchell's injury. John Harbaugh, that's something that's a little concerning with Keaton in terms of the way that, Harbaugh had talked about, where he said he was asked about how serious the Mitchell injury was. And he said, we'll evaluate tomorrow. We'll know more tomorrow. That's one that's going to have to take us some time to look at tomorrow, which, usually when it's not a big deal, Harbaugh kind of says, yeah, nothing serious. This will happen. So I'm a little concerned about Keaton. I hope he's all right. But, I just, you have Derek off the field for some of the, and then when Keaton went down, again, it's nothing against Keaton, but you shouldn't be rotating in Mitchell and Henry possession by possession. They should be working in tandem together. That to me was really weird. And yeah, offensively, it's just rough. They went 2 for 6 in the red zone, and the stats aren't out right now, but going 2 for 6 in the red zone, obviously 33.3%. The Ravens coming into this week in the red zone were abysmal, first of all, but they were 46.5%. So that's actually going to drag their number down. And even if they don't move down in the rankings, they're 30th right now. They're obviously, like I said, over the course of this week, it's going to move them down a couple percentage points for a team that was number 1 in that category over the course of last season. Just a historic fall off from them in that regard. And they really need to get better at that. Lamar in this game was better than he looked in the past 3 games. And again, the bar was pretty low for that. Had a couple of tough throws. One of Derrick Henry where he missed him. The ball's a little short. Obviously, the sack at the end of the game there, that was rough. And, the interception where James Pierre kind of bailed at the last second Lamar throws, and there was the one-handed interception. But, also, Rashad Bateman dropped a pretty clear first down / touchdown. Zay Flowers had a ball that, he caught out of bounds when there was no one around him. So, it was a better Lamar game. I liked how he used his legs a little bit more in this one. I thought that his burst was back even more so than I thought it was in Cincinnati. So that was a really good thing. But, outside of Zay, who I thought had a good game, he was getting open. He was the Ravens' big guy in the pass game, 8 for 124. He had 99 more yards than the next closest. Isaiah Likely 4 for 25. But, other than that, Mark Andrews 1 for 9, pretty disappointing there. Bateman was disappointing, obviously. Just a game where they didn't play well enough over the course of the game. And, they started super slow. And then, they start to find something in the second half. And all of a sudden you're like, well, too little, too late, especially with the ref stuff. But that's the problem, right? They let the refs and those calls make it like those calls were a lot bigger of a deal because, one, they were wrong. And of course they're a big deal when they're wrong. But 2, it severely impacted the fact that the Ravens were down trying to make a comeback, and they seem to get these breaks or make good plays, and all of a sudden it's like, nope. But again, shouldn't have even let it get to that point. So now the Ravens are 6-7. Pittsburgh holds the tiebreaker currently. They also have a game up in division record, and the Ravens schedule doesn't get any easier with them having to go to Cincinnati next week, a team that's going to be very motivated. I think their playoff hopes are probably dashed, but they're going to try everything they can here. So just tough all the way around, tough way to lose, and now the Ravens are really backed up against the wall. So that's all I have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning into the show on the way out. Be sure to like and subscribe button in video form. Follow along and subscribe in audio form for 5 days a week, plus more of daily Ravens coverage and content. Coming up tomorrow, we'll be back here talking more Ravens football. So be sure to stay tuned, and I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.